Good morning, Nick. I hope I still am SNP Westminster leader. I think you've just given me my obituary.
Oh, well, nobody is anything until they get elected, until the voters say that they are.
I know,
that was my only point,
Indeed,
really.
indeed.
Now, we heard, Nicola, you may not have done, but we heard your leader and the First Minister of Scotland say a little bit earlier on that she wanted to stop the trade deal that would be done in the future with the United States, leading to the privatisation of the NHS. Can you just clarify to me, why would any government voluntarily agree to increase the price of drugs in this country, given that it would be a huge waste of money and deeply unpopular? Why would any Tory government agree to that, let alone any other government?
Well, of course, that's an absolutely key question, but the fact remains is that Donald Trump keeps telling people it's America first, and both he and his health secretary have said that we need to get to a situation that others in other parts of the world are paying a higher price for US pharmaceuticals, for US medicines. So all the evidence is there, Nick.
But that's the evidence of what Donald Trump wants, not of what any government would do. It's not very complicated, Mr. Blackford. What you do is you say, if you're in government, I know you'd like that. Here's the answer. No.
Well, but the fact is, we've got an opportunity in Parliament, if we back the SNP's bill, to make it clear that we're not prepared to see our NHS being used as a bargaining counter. We're not prepared to see the services and the procurement of the NHS opened up to competition, and for all of us to be paying a price, to give US corporates the opportunity through the dispute resolution mechanism to have a hold over our National Health Service. And I think it's right that we protect it by passing the necessary legislation. That's in the interests of not just Scotland but other parts of the United Kingdom to do that as well.
But is that really legislation that's needed, or is it legislation as a press release? It's a way of saying, look at us, we really are very passionate about the NHS. What actual difference would it make?
It makes a huge difference, Nick, because there is a threat to the NHS, and we don't trust Boris Johnson. We know that from everything he's done over the course of the last few months. We need to make sure that in those trade negotiations, if he is Prime Minister, that he doesn't bargain away the NHS, which is so critical to all of us, something that we've all relied on over the course of the last 70 years.
Who's responsible for the NHS in Scotland?
Well, we are.
You are.
We are
You're
responsible for the NHS in Scotland, and thank goodness.
Well, you've missed your waiting time targets, haven't you, Mr. Blackford? 2 out of 8 are the only ones that have been met. Is it possible that you'd quite like to talk about the Tories in the NHS because you'd rather not talk about the SNP's record actually running the health service?
I will happily talk about the SNP's record over the NHS in Scotland, and the fact is, public satisfaction with the NHS in Scotland is higher than it is in England and Wales. Waiting times for A&E has been better in Scotland than any other part of the United Kingdom consistently over the course of the last 4 years. We need to invest in the NHS, we need to make it even better than it is. But I'll tell you what, our record stands very fair comparison with other parts of the United Kingdom.
Well, am I right that you have only met 2 out of your 8 waiting time targets?
Well, look, at the end of the day, there are areas where we need to make sure that we deliver across all fronts.
Is that a fact?
When you look, but Nick, let me say to you, when you look at cancer treatment, for example, 85% of those that are getting cancer treatment in the NHS in Scotland are satisfied with the treatment they're getting. Yeah. The simple fact is, when I talk to my constituents, when I talk to people throughout Scotland, they recognise that the NHS in Scotland is delivering. Are there areas that we wish to improve upon? Yes, there are. We have an outstanding health secretary in Scotland.
Well, there was an independent report, wasn't there? An independent report just a few days ago suggesting that the numbers simply don't add up. You've got a £1 billion maintenance backlog. The capital budget in NHS Scotland has fallen by more than 60% over the last decade. It seems to me if you were that proud of your record on the NHS, you'd probably talk about it a bit more and not always talk about the Tories who don't actually run the NHS in Scotland.
I'm making it clear I'm very happy to do so. If you look at the number of nurses, the number of doctors, the number of operations, the spending in the NHS in Scotland, what's holding us back is austerity from Westminster over the course of the last 10 years. It's Westminster that controls our budget. But, you know, when I talk to people, and I would recommend that the BBC gets out and talks to constituents here, people are very satisfied with the performance of the NHS in Scotland. The SNP have been in government in Scotland since 2007. We've won the last 3 elections. We won the elections to the European Parliament. We've won the last 2 Westminster elections. Why? Because the people in Scotland see the SNP getting on with the day job. And I'm really looking forward to the opportunity to put ourselves in front of the electorate over the course of the next few weeks on the basis of standing up for Scotland, on the basis of stopping Brexit. And if people want to judge us on the performance of the government in Edinburgh, I'm very happy to have that debate.
Well, you will know the old phrase that imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. Jeremy Corbyn one day talks about the threat of a US trade deal to the National Health Service. A week later, the SNP say, oh, that's a very good idea, let's talk about that. It was Labour's point, this, wasn't it? You've just jumped on that bandwagon.
Not at all. We were waiting for our campaign launch today, and the fact is that we are bringing forward a bill. We are streets ahead of the opposition. And you know, when you talk about Labour, the fact is that many of the things that Labour are talking about today, free tuition, free personal care, these are things that we're delivering in Scotland. It's Scotland that's leading the way in the United Kingdom, and we need to make sure that that journey that we've been on with devolution over the last 20 years, that we complete with independence, because that's the way that we deliver for the people of Scotland. I'm afraid what you've got is the comparison of flattery that's coming from the Labour Party, not the other way around.
Ian Blackford, thanks so much for taking the time to join us.